Hello everybody, welcome to episode 18 of Project Geekology, where we strike fast, strike hard, and have no mercy. I am one half of your host, Anthony, and joined with me, as always, is...
Quiet!
Dakota.
Hey man, before we start this episode, I want to talk about the fact that we've reached a milestone. We've reached 1,000 downloads over all our episodes, man. That is huge. I'm pretty excited about that. I'm happy. I'm glad that we're actually reaching people. It's really great. We're posting things on Twitter. People are responding. We posted a poll this week and people went out and voted, and I thought that was great that we actually have people out there and checking our stuff out. It's fun being a part of something that I enjoy doing and people also enjoy.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you said, we have just released a poll, and the audience, you people, you lovely geeks out there, have voted in our poll. So we wanted to include the audience in our future episodes. So as we are recording this, we have only released 15 episodes. We have episodes 16 and 17 ready to be edited, and we're recording 18 now, but we wanted to continue to progress down the line. We want to have episodes lined up for future podcasts. We asked you on both Twitter and on my YouTube channel, Geekritique, what episode or what you would like to see us do in our next episode after this episode. And you've spoken. The choices were The Lion King, the 94 animated film versus the 2019 reboot, The Princess Bride, the classic movie, Godzilla 2014 specifically by Gareth Edwards, and George Lucas's The Phantom Menace. And overwhelmingly, we received, between both polls, we received 135 votes, and you guys voted overwhelmingly in favor of The Phantom Menace. I think it rounds out to about 39 or 40% of the vote. But we want to get to all of these topics at some point in the near future. So some of these, if they didn't win and you voted for them, we'll have them in future polls that you can vote for. So, just keep your eye on our Twitter feed or on our YouTube channel for future polls. We want to get these out weekly going forward. So if you really want us to discuss something like The Princess Bride or something else in the future, be sure to look at the poll going forward. But we did have a few comments that I just wanted to talk about. Alex Sigsworth posted a meme. It's like that scene from The Joker where he's being interviewed and he goes, "Let me get this straight. You think The Phantom Menace is a good movie?" And then they have Joaquin Phoenix's Joker. "I do. And I'm tired of pretending it's not." So next week, we're going to be talking about The Phantom Menace. And we're very excited about that. I mean, it's a movie we both grew up with. It's not a well-beloved movie, but I think within the Star Wars fandom, people are warming up to the nostalgia of it. All right, am I right in saying that, Anthony?
I agree. I don't hate the movie like a lot of people do. I do find a lot of aspects of it that I'm fond of. I mean, sure, there are things about it that are problematic, but I know that we'll dig a little bit deeper into that in our actual Phantom Menace episode, but I do agree there is nostalgia behind it.
Yeah, and Graf Fuller, you mentioned all great topics. Speaking about the four that were listed in the poll, and you said, but my favorite movie of all time is The Princess Bride. Its cult status and revival is a wonderful love story. Read the book first, then saw the movie. I've also read As You Wish, written by Cary Elwes or Wesley himself. The movie is hard to quantify other than great. And I agree with you. I actually just bought a copy of, I don't have it on me right now, but it's a copy of the film published by the Criterion Collection. And for those who aren't aware, the Criterion Collection is like a special publishing company that licenses out certain movies that they want to release with like special artwork, special behind the scenes features, stuff like that. So I got a Criterion Collection version of The Princess Bride, and it's like a beautiful little case, and I can't wait to actually watch the film again. So I'll wait until we decide to do that for an upcoming show. Do you like that movie, Anthony? Princess Bride?
Princess Bride? Oh yeah, I think it's a great movie. It's fun. It's lighthearted, funny, and it has a lot of action in it. It's cool. It's a classic fairy tale type movie.
Yeah, and the structure is like it's fantastic. I remember when I first watched it, and that's actually something I don't think I've ever mentioned to you. Like, I don't think we've ever had a conversation about The Princess Bride, but I'm looking forward to eventually having a deeper dive into that, because it's got to be over 15 years since I've seen that movie. Maybe 10 years.
I'd seen it recently. I think I like Andre the Giant's character. He's like one of my favorites in that movie.
All right. I have to rewatch it in a future episode. So if you guys want to see Princess Bride or our Lion King episode in the same vein as our Mulan episode, or something else like Godzilla 2014, maybe we can go through some of the MonsterVerse films before Godzilla vs. Kong comes out. Stuff like that. But anyway, getting off of our poll, we've been very excited about actually having some audience participation and stuff like that. So, Anthony, what have you been up to this past week?
This week, I have been doing different things. I jumped into Dairy Girls, as I told you about.
Okay.
I was actually talking to Jen about it. I took a picture of it and I sent it to her on Instagram that I was watching it. And I told her there's a couple like crass TV shows that I like too, but they're like mostly Canadian. One of them being Letterkenny. I don't know if you've heard it. Yeah, it's pretty funny. But yeah, I've been watching Dairy Girls and just like playing different games here and there. For some reason, I'm on a Hearthstone kick right now.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, Hearthstone, for those of you who don't know, is a card, or I should say it's an app that plays out like a card game, where you buy booster packs with, in-game credits, and you're able to play against online people, basically. And it's based around the World of Warcraft trading card game that never really went anywhere back in the mid-2000s. What do you think about Hearthstone, Anthony?
I think it's fun. For some reason, every once in a while, I get into these modes that I want to play a CCG, a collectible card game.
Yeah.
And Yu-Gi-Oh can be a little bit too much. I feel like there's been too many generations behind it, and I have so much of a connection to the older version of Yu-Gi-Oh, whereas this, I don't have as much of a nostalgia to it, except, playing World of Warcraft in the past. I mean, I think it's hilarious that there's actually like a Leroy Jenkins card in there.
That is awesome. One of the first truly viral memes. I love that.
Yes.
And probably the most popular World of Warcraft meme ever is the Leroy Jenkins meme.
Oh yeah. So yeah, I've been doing that. But yeah, other than that, how about you? What have you been up to? What's going on with you?
I'm trying to think. I haven't really been playing anything in terms of like CCG or anything like that. I did play a little bit of Battlefront 2 recently. I did play a little bit of Fall Guys just because I was, I jumped on and played with some friends of mine. But in terms of like just phone games, I have my typical Don Machi game that I've been playing for years. And that's my CCG of choice. I mean, it's not really a CCG, but you know what I mean. And I'm still playing the Disney Sorcerer Arena, which I've gotten kind of in the higher levels of recently. I feel like I've finally gotten to the end game of that game, and it's better. But anyway, other than that, I've started watching Twin Peaks. I don't know if you've ever watched that or know what that is.
I know Twin Peaks, but I haven't watched it.
That's kind of where I was my whole life, really, because the show came out before we were born in 1990. And I think it was, I finished shortly after, we were born. But it's fantastic, dude. It's one of the best thriller, drama, mystery shows I've seen in a very, very long time. And I think it's got to be one of those shows that helped define a genre of television, because I can't think of anything else that would have done that. And I've spoken to people who watched it at the time that it was airing, like my parents and Jen's parents and stuff like that, and they're just like, oh yeah, there was nothing like that before. It was something like totally groundbreaking. And my dad compared it to stuff like Lost. Like, if that show didn't come out, shows like Lost or maybe even WandaVision wouldn't have come out. So it's interesting in that respect, and I'm really digging it. Jen texts me about like, can we watch Twin Peaks tonight after you get home from work? I'm like, sure.
What are you watching it on?
It's on Netflix.
Oh, okay, nice. Actually, you know what? I forgot to add that I have been watching Farscape.
Oh yeah, you mentioned that. I've never watched Farscape, but it's something that's always been on my list. How is it?
I like Farscape because it's one of those sci-fi TV shows that when you think of a sci-fi TV show, that's something that might pop up into your head. Like I would put it into something along the lines of like a Battlestar Galactica or a Stargate SG-1, except this one's a lot different in the sense that there's puppets. There's Jim Henson puppets in it.
Whoa,
For
really?
the Jim,
Okay.
yeah, Jim Henson Company. And some of the prosthetics and everything are really, really cool. The ship that this group of, it's people and aliens, it's a living ship. Even though it looks like it's a crazy shape and stuff, and it doesn't look like a living ship, it's a living being.
Kind of like the TARDIS in Doctor Who, or no? A little different.
Yeah, it's a little different. Yeah, because the TARDIS, just think of a more spaceship-looking version of the whales from Star Wars.
Okay, I got you. All right.
But even though it's not a whale.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that I forgot
Interesting.
to mention that.
So it's good? Farscape?
Yeah, I enjoyed. I mean, there's some episodes that aren't as thrilling, but I would say that there's still a lot of episodes. And the fact that these are 22 or 20 something plus episode seasons and like almost an hour long. I mean, I think with commercials, it was an hour long.
Yeah.
You know, thinking back on a time when that stuff like that existed, like I appreciate it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, with that being said, maybe we should kick it into high gear and start talking about Cobra Kai. That wasn't a pun. The whole kicking wasn't a pun. That just came to me on the fly. But we should talk about Cobra Kai. We've talked about it several times in previous episodes, whether it was our Karate Kid episode, which was spurred on by the fact that Cobra Kai is such a sensation right now, and we've talked about it in other episodes recently. I think it's it's a good amount of time now that's passed since the third season where we can feel comfortable talking about spoilers for all three seasons so far. Just for those who haven't listened to our previous podcast where we talked about Cobra Kai and Karate Kid, what is your relationship with the franchise as a whole? And maybe I'll jump in after that.
As a franchise, I remember watching the Karate Kid movies when I was younger. You know, being a child of somebody that grew up in the 80s, they're going to show you something that, I mean, not something, they're going to show you everything that they can from the 80s.
Yeah.
And that was one of the movie series that I enjoyed a lot. That along with like Back to the Future and stuff, but I really enjoyed those movies, especially maybe we talked about, Pat Morita and just the dynamic between the different characters and the narrative. It's a really enjoyable series, and the fact that they came out with Cobra Kai, see, I didn't come and watch Cobra Kai when it first came out. It was a YouTube original for the first 2 seasons, and I didn't want it to. I wasn't really interested in buying YouTube. There wasn't much on it that I wanted to watch. Maybe a couple series, but nothing that I was willing to invest in. And when they finally moved it over to Netflix, that's when I was like, you know what? Let me check this out. And when I watched those first 2 seasons, like I was instantly hooked. You get hooked after the first episode.
Yeah, it's
and
true.
And that's hard nowadays.
Yeah.
Nowadays you have to wait a few episodes before you're hooked, and I think what had it going for it is the fact that we know these characters.
Right.
So there's a past that was already established in the 80s. Yeah, I love the series. How about you? What's your connection with the series?
So I've only ever watched the Karate Kid prior to watching Cobra Kai, and that is it's kind of required viewing. The other movies are certainly they certainly help with the understanding of what goes on. The second and third film help you understand the history of these two characters, Johnny Lawrence and Daniel LaRusso. But It's the first movie that you truly get the basic framework of what the Karate Kid is. It's the first movie that truly, or I should say, the Cobra Kai basically is a paradigm shift from what we know of Karate Kid. So it kind of like shifts the perspective to the antagonist. And I think that that's a fantastic way to set a series, especially a series 35, 40 years later. And I think they do a fantastic job. In terms of whether or not I was hooked from the start, I think I did have YouTube Red, or it's now called YouTube Premium at the time of recording this, when they first started releasing episodes, and I did watch the first couple, and I remember thinking, this is amazing. For a YouTube original, because I watched very few YouTube originals, they don't usually appeal to me. They usually appeal towards a younger, angsty teen audience, who, and most of their shows tend to have YouTubers, like actual YouTube creators, behind the seat in terms of like who's playing the protagonist and stuff like that never appealed to me. And I think that's why most people don't care to buy YouTube Red, or it's called YouTube Premium now. And I think that's why the show failed on YouTube. Now, YouTube did produce 2 seasons of it. It was their most popular show, but it was not the audience for it. And when Netflix took over, like you said, Anthony, that's when the popularity for the show blew up. I never saw anyone talk about the show before that. I think I saw Philip DeFranco say, hey, this is a really good show, you should check it out. But that's as far as I saw, like on YouTube, of people talking about Cobra Kai. So when it hit Netflix, it became one of the best streamed shows, period, of the year. And now with the release of the 3rd season and the knowledge of a 4th season coming down the line, it's a really exciting time to be a Karate Kid fan. And I still haven't revisited the later films in the Karate Kid series, but I'm excited to do so. Especially now.
Yeah, I do think that the 2nd and 3rd films help with the 3rd season.
For sure, the 3rd season, they do talk a little bit about later films in some of the 1st and 2nd season of Cobra Kai. But this season heavily is influenced by later films.
Yeah.
So I gotta go back and watch those. But let's start from the 1st season and work our way up.
So for the 1st season, you come into it with a disheveled Johnny Lawrence. He's kind of down on his luck. Life has been pretty hard for him up until that point. Like the beginning, like you just see how he's just he drinks a lot. And
he's hit rock bottom. He really has hit rock bottom.
Really, yeah. I mean, he
loses his job. His car gets crashed. Yeah.
It's crazy because he connects with this kid, Miguel. I mean, the way that he connects with it is, it's a pretty crazy moment. These kids are picking on him and like next to a convenience store, and he starts like kicking their butts, with karate. So Miguel, he eggs him on like, hey, teach me karate. And it's not until he has an interaction with Daniel LaRusso at one of his car dealerships. Like, he has these car dealerships now. And it's crazy. Like, a lot has happened. I like how this world feels lived in. It's not something that it was just like a time jump. It kind of explains a bit of what was going on, and that it's a lived in world.
Enough time has passed where their lives have moved on from karate. So they both have had kids, both Daniel and Johnny at this point, but one of them is vastly more successful in terms of their family life and actual career, and that's obviously Daniel LaRusso. The entire show at the beginning paints him out to be not the villain, but someone that is the complete opposite of Johnny Lawrence, from personality to life experience. And you kind of feel bad for the villain of the Karate Kid, Johnny Lawrence, because you're watching it through his eyes. You see that he is down in the dumps. You see that he is at the bottom of his... He's at the bottom of his life, apparently. And, you can't see him picking himself back up at this point. He's given up. And it's not until Miguel shows up in his life that he realizes that I can do something with my life. I can reopen Cobra Kai and start this dojo back up.
Yeah. So he starts his dojo back up, and it's a rough start. It's funny because he's training Miguel, and this inspector comes in, and like everything is, there's things hanging from the roof, like, loose wiring, things are frayed.
Exposed wires, yeah.
Yeah. And this guy's like, "Oh, you're not open, right?" And Johnny, like, he was obviously open, but Johnny's just kind of like, "Oh no, of course not." And kind of like a oops. But it's crazy because as the season progresses, he starts getting more students. So we obviously meet Daniel's daughter, which is Sam, and Johnny's son, whose name is Robbie. So the thing that I like about this first season is that it establishes that it's not just about Daniel and Johnny's still like constant struggle, even though you could tell that they've spent some time apart. Now that they've come back together by some crazy thing where Daniel's daughter was hanging out with friends, and they crashed into Johnny's car, and he went to go get it fixed at the dealership, and Johnny didn't know it was Daniel's dealership. So they cross paths, in a crazy kind of way. I like that the show kind of, it goes back and forth between the struggle of Daniel and Johnny, and their kids are involved. You see, what's going on in their life. Also with Miguel and Robbie. It's crazy. Like, there's a bunch of different storylines, but they also work together. It's not like you're confused. You're like, oh, I don't know what's going on here. It all makes sense.
It's kind of amazing when you think of adapting something like The Karate Kid for TV. All you have to do really is add a few more viewpoints, add a few more characters to the mix, and you get a TV show. You get a couple more hours per season than you would in a movie. You literally double the screen time, or triple it in some cases.
Right.
And it's really cool how they adapted Karate Kid for TV, and I think that they do a fantastic job, especially the first season, in terms of what they, what they're actually capable of doing. They introduce family dynamics, they introduce drama, they introduce old rivalries and new rivalries, and it all feels natural. Like you said, it feels like a lived-in world, and it's not something that's first of all, yes, it's well thought out. It's well thought out TV, but it doesn't always work. Not everything worked out from the original film. Like, obviously, what he thought at the time was the love of his life, Allie, isn't in the picture, at least in the first season. She's not around, and she's not in either of their lives. That's the girl that they were fighting over. That's why they have this rivalry to begin with. But she's not in the picture. They're still hating on each other, and it's great. I really like that it's almost like Johnny is attached at the hip to the idea of Cobra Kai, even though he recognizes that his previous mentor, his previous sensei, was abusive. He realizes that Sensei Kreese was a bad person. He wants to bring back the spirit of the dojo that he grew up in, which was Cobra Kai. And it's interesting how, as the show goes on, his interpretation of what the values of his dojo and what they need to be change over time. So he begins, with the same motto, strike first, strike hard, no mercy. And over time, he realizes that, if you do this, if you follow this to the letter, you're going to be a jerk. You're going to be a jerk your whole life. You're going to be a bully. And he doesn't want his students to be that way. He wants them to be cool. He wants them to be able to, stand up for themselves and stand up to their problems. That's kind of the whole goal of, originally teaching Miguel and stuff.
Right.
But the message, when taken to the logical extreme, like with Kreese, becomes more gang oriented than anything, and it's an interesting shift that he makes mentally. Some of his kids get it and some of his kids don't. I forget, at the end of the first season, is that when the tournament is?
Yes.
So in the first season, again, fantastic first season.
I think what they do so good in this first season, or so great in this first season, is how they take this antagonist and they actually make you like him. They make you feel bad for him. They show you his side of the story, and it makes you think like, man, there really is two sides to every story, and you only saw one all those years ago, you know?
Yeah, and obviously when you go and rewatch Karate Kid, it's easy to take the side of Daniel LaRusso. He's the new kid on the block. He's just trying to get by in high school. He's trying to mack it to this girl that he likes. He saw at the beach, whatever. But it's also hard not to see the failings that Johnny Lawrence has, or the character traits that has been inculcated in him, because he's a jerk. You know, he is the bully of the story. He is tormenting Daniel throughout the entirety of the first season. And there's times when Daniel deserves it. You know, the time when he put the sprinkler on him at the dance party.
Yeah, I know that. My mind always goes to that moment
because that was an act of instigation on Daniel's part. He had to know that something was going to come of that. Now that I think about it, it's got to be partially responsible to his mother in that instance, because she made him the shower curtain costume. So maybe he got the idea to like shower Johnny with water from the costume that his mother made him. I don't know. That just came to me.
Oh my gosh.
Little mini theory right there that cannot ever be proven. But anyway, it's kind of cool though. Like the fact that you have this show or this movie, Karate Kid, and it's from this one perspective. But as soon as you expand the reach, expand the length of time, and just change the viewpoints around and just shift them, you know, one episode follows this guy, one episode follows this guy, and you're seeing the story progress day by day. There's two sides to that story. Yeah, and it's really well done.
They really did a great job in maturing the characters, and it's crazy how Daniel sounds exactly the same as he did when he was a kid. Like the way he talks sounds exactly the way that he did as a kid. Like Johnny, you know, he doesn't sound the same. I mean, he still kind of has like that kind of 80s talk, but that accent that Daniel has, it reminds me so much of Karate Kid. But we have to talk about the way that Johnny is in this first season.
Sure.
It is absolutely hilarious, because this is a guy that time left behind. This guy acts like he just stepped out of a cryo chamber and that he went to sleep back in 1980s.
It's true. And what's weird is that like this isn't like a phenomenon that's just like leveled at him. There are many people from like that time period who grew up in the 80s, who grew up in like the late 70s and stuff, who act like this. You know, they're stuck in the 80s. They still have their mullets. They still have their long hair and their jean jackets, and all they listen to is Kiss and stuff like that. So it's funny seeing him interact with the modern day and age. Like, he understands some things, you know?
Yeah,
like,
he does.
Obviously how to get around. He previously worked in an audio and video installation company, and like, you know, just doing odd jobs, and he knew how to turn a TV on, obviously, and stuff like that. But in terms of like using the internet, using a computer, he's completely blown away. He has no idea what a Facebook is.
I know. I absolutely loved that so much. And when he's like promoting his dojo, he's like, "You want to score some babes?"
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. Gosh. The show works on several levels. And
it really does.
In terms of Johnny Lawrence and his growth,
you
kind of have to get through some of the cringe of his day-to-day life and like his very not PC way of handling things. You know, like he's not politically correct at all.
No.
I think that show handles it very well. I think
it really does.
Handles, because, you know, you have individuals who kind of miss the old days of, like, you know, not caring about what people say on a television show or a movie or whatever. And that's the type of person Johnny Lawrence is. He doesn't care who he offends. He doesn't care about anything like that. But then you have, like, his students who are just like, you know, Sensei, you probably shouldn't say that. I love those interactions so much because you get both sides of the coin. You understand why it's wrong to say that nowadays, but you understand why this guy is totally he totally feels like absolutely no remorse about saying it. So it's funny. It's a generational joke. It's generational humor that fits perfectly with this franchise because you understand where he came from and you understand where the story is going.
You can tell that, you know, the people, or the only people that would have been able to get that right are the people that understood that time, and they're making fun of it. They're essentially like making fun of it,
Sure.
but in a way that it's not cringe in a way like, you know, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they did that. It's more like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they did that. That's hilarious.
Yeah, I can't believe they got away with that. That's hilarious.
So yeah, you're right about Johnny growing as a character, because when he first opened Cobra Kai, he said absolutely no girls, but then here comes Aisha Robinson, and she shows that she's got the mettle. You know, that she can kind of handle herself. She wants to be able to handle herself even better. He starts allowing these people that he considers geeks, like Eli, aka Hawk. Hawk's character is absolutely crazy. Just over the seasons, man, there's so many characters in here to remember.
Let's talk a little bit about Aisha Robertson, because I just looked up her character and why. You know, obviously, if you haven't watched season 3, you probably should before finishing this episode. But she wasn't in season 3, and essentially, like, it wasn't anything that the actor did to get her kicked out of the show. It wasn't anything that she wanted to not be involved in the show or anything like that. Basically, she broke the news on Instagram where she said, officially not part of Cobra Kai season 3. It's disappointing, but hopefully I'll have something later on down the line. And the show creators basically said that, you know, there's a lot of story left to tell, and it's very likely that she'll come up again, because there's certain characters that didn't show up in season 2 that were in season 1 and then showed up again in season 3. So hopefully she's one of those characters, because she was one of the cooler characters in terms of actual character growth.
Yeah,
but I maybe we'll talk more about her and why she may not have shown up, because it did make sense in the writing of the season why she didn't show up. But
they made it apparent like why she wasn't there. It wasn't just like, you know, like they didn't just leave it open where it was. Where it's like, where is she? They gave a reason why she wasn't there.
Yeah, she didn't just die over the summer.
Oh my gosh.
Let's finish off the events of the first season. So one of the bigger things that occurs in the first season is the we learn more about Johnny's son, his kind of estranged son. Like, they don't have a relationship. He kind of becomes mentored by Daniel LaRusso. You know, Daniel starts teaching him his version of karate, which was taught to him by Mr. Miyagi. So he reopens the Miyagi-Do karate, and teaches Robbie, which, you know, is Johnny's son, his version of karate. So it creates a whole interlocking and multi-layered dynamic of, you know, relational struggle between the LaRussos and the Lawrences. By the end of the season, they finally have the All Valley tournament, just like they did in the original Karate Kid, where eventually they pit Cobra Kai's best student, which is Miguel, and Miyagi-Do's only student at the time, Robbie, against each other. And, spoiler alert, Robbie wins.
So in that moment, Samantha and Robbie kind of have this connection. Towards the end of the season, up until that moment, Samantha and Robbie end up connecting because earlier in the season, Samantha and Miguel, they start dating, and Miguel he kind of gets indoctrinated by the Cobra Kai mantra, and he starts becoming, you know, this kind of a jerk. So, you know, by the end of the season, he's angry. In that tournament, he was fighting pretty aggressive. It was almost reminiscent of Johnny and Daniel in their fight in the tournament.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, Miguel doesn't go around bullying people like Johnny did back in The Karate Kid. But you can start to see the anger, the fury in the way that he uses his fighting abilities in the tournament. But obviously nothing to the degree that, he doesn't sweep the leg or anything like that in terms of trying to beat Robbie. But anyway, so first season is an excellent season, and I think the second season plays off of a lot of the a lot of the stuff that was so great about the first season. I think at the end of the first season, actually, they leave it off on a cliffhanger where Johnny Lawrence's previous sensei, Kreese, comes to basically take lodging in the newly refounded Cobra Kai dojo, and basically he's proud of Johnny Lawrence, and he's very conniving, and you know he's a snake in the grass, bro. He's gonna bring trouble that Johnny doesn't want. Johnny doesn't realize he doesn't want it. I mean, right. He probably does a little bit. They fight a little bit at the start, but he ends up giving Kreese a second chance in the second season, and this doesn't really work in his favor. But what's cool about season 2 is you start to see the growth of both dojos in different directions. You see more people join Cobra Kai, the team strengthens, and then you also see Miyagi-Do. Like after the All Valley tournament, a number of people come, like Dimitri. They like characters that you wouldn't expect to want to even care about karate are suddenly taking interest and joining the Miyagi-Do dojo. And
there's even some characters from Cobra Kai that go over to Miyagi-Do because they're kind of like, I'm not really feeling this aggressive vibe. So they go over too. This one introduces another kind of main character, Tori, which is played by Peyton List.
Correct. Yeah. She's like the bad girl of the series.
And her character actually adds a lot in this season.
Yeah, especially I think in season 2. She's kind of the...
She plays a great, villainess, She's a good villain.
She is certainly like an antagonist character. She's certainly a villain in some instances.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to Sam.
Right. And then there are those instances where you do have pity on her because there is a lot going on in her life in the background.
Yeah, and you don't even learn about it until the third season or whatever. But you do feel bad for this girl because you see that she lives a very tough life where she's trying to look after her family. She has to keep down a household, or rather an apartment, and she's living under an abusive landowner. And it's kind of difficult to watch a little bit because you feel bad for the character, but at the same time she goes and does arguably worse stuff down the line in the season,
right?
So it's kind of like a I want to feel bad for you kind of thing, and I do in certain instances, but right now you're kind of a jerk.
Right. And this second season it's interesting because there's you see a shift where Johnny he's still trying to do his Cobra Kai, but he's also trying to make sure that it doesn't get as bad as it was. But then now that he has Kreese on board, Kreese is trying to creep in and influence it a little bit more and more. You see him kind of stepping in a little bit more as the season progresses, until things get pretty bad towards the end and Johnny kicks him out. He's like, hey, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
You have to go. I tried to give you a second chance. You obviously didn't change. So
you're teaching my kids terrible ways of behavior and living their life and aggression that they don't need in their life. That's going to end up getting them in trouble. So at the end of season 2,
so strong.
Yeah, I think that has probably the strongest ending for the entire series so far. Is season 2's ending. It's basically a big school fight scene where everything comes to a head in I think it's the first day of school or the second day of school or something like that, and everyone just goes crazy. They have it's almost like a gang fight because you have Cobra Kai.
Yeah.
And you have Miyagi-Do.
Let's be real, it is a gang fight. Like, I mean, it wasn't, dude, that wasn't even a gang fight. That was like a gang war.
Yeah.
I mean,
dude,
that was a war. I mean, it was a massive fight. And it wasn't just like, 2 or 3 people fighting. It was like everybody from both dojos fighting everywhere in the school. You couldn't go anywhere in that school without somebody fighting. And obviously the fight is focusing on between Sam and Tori and Robbie and Miguel. There's tensions rising. Miguel's kind of angry at Robbie because he feels that Robbie stole Sam. And there's a moment between Sam and Miguel that Tori caught a glimpse of. So she's feeling mad for the same reasons. Oh my gosh, one of the characters that I thought was hilarious in this fight was that dude. He called himself Stingray, the older guy.
I was just gonna mention him. Yep,
Stingray, and it was so funny because I think he was in the first season. Season, but he was like that Home Depot guy.
Yes.
Or Lowe's. And then he comes back in the second season and he joins the dojo. And then he braids his beard and calls himself Stingray. His character is absolutely hilarious. And his moment in that fight is absolutely hilarious.
My favorite scene with Stingray, I wish he had more of a role in the third season. I think he is in the third season, but he's not like half as like important. But like when he shows up to the house party with like 2 liquor bottles like taped to his hands, and he has to drink his way out of it. What a freak, dude. And he brought his like adult girlfriend with him, or wife. I don't know what relationship they have, but like they're totally cool partying with a bunch of high schoolers, whatever.
I know. I thought that was funny.
It's a good time. But yeah, anyway.
Yeah.
Another thing in that fight scene that I think was probably the most like moment. I'm like fist pumping right now because it's one of those moments that I'm just like that you cheer when you finally see it, is when Dimitri takes on Hawk, who has been bullying him for the past season and a half, since Hawk, or Eli, became Hawk, basically the bully character of the show. And Dimitri takes him on and like kicks him into a trophy case.
Yeah.
Fantastic turn of the tide there. And I love that scene so much because in that moment you see Dimitri realize, wait, I'm not weak. I'm not just some person that can be pushed over anymore. So it's a good scene, but eventually the fight ends in like horrible tragedy. First of all, you have freaking Tori, who brings bear claws to school, metal bear claws, and rips up Sam's arm. The inside of the arm, which is where Sam got hit, that's an artery right there. You could kill someone like that. So freaking Tori, man, what the heck, man?
Yeah, man. And I do have to say that in the part with Miguel, there was a serious growth moment for him where he backed off.
Yes.
He was about to finish off Robbie until he remembered what Johnny had said about knowing when to have mercy.
Right.
And so he stops, and that moment backfires on him in a way. And I'm not saying backfire like, oh, he should have. Yeah, in a big way. Like, I'm not saying that he should have finished him off, but, his moment of kindness backfired, in which he gets kicked over the edge and he hits his back on the railing of the stairs, and it ends the season on that. And it's crazy. When you're talking about Dimitri, something that we didn't talk about was this whole season was a big struggle for him to figure out karate. He was a very slow learner when it came to that stuff. And there was an instance of him being bullied was in the mall. Remember the mall fight? There was a big fight in the mall where Sam and Robbie fight off a bunch of Cobra Kai guys.
True. Yeah, I forgot about that.
So, and then also in the center of that fight was Dimitri, and he was getting pretty much beat up. that moment in the end where Dimitri kicks Hawk, aka Eli, into the trophy case was like a moment of redemption for him, a moment of strength. Like he believed in himself.
Totally. 100% agree with you there. That's where season 2 ends, with Miguel paralyzed, with Robbie on the run because now he's a felon. You know, he could be charged with attempted murder at that point, kicking someone over a railing onto a staircase. That's, you know, he could have died.
Yeah.
I mean, that escalated quickly, first of all. But what I like about that interaction is that Cobra Kai isn't the bad team. You know, they're not the ones like in the Karate Kid that were antagonizing the other karate dojo. In this case, it was Robbie who took it too far, who was part of Miyagi-Do karate.
Yeah.
And just that dynamic, starting season 3 off was fantastic for me, because you see the inner torment of Daniel LaRusso, like, what did I do? This is my fault, because I taught this kid the skills he needed to be able to kick this other kid off of the second story of this high school. It's a really interesting, like, dynamic flip of, like, who really is the bad guy. And I think at the end of the day, and I was talking about this with Jen when we were watching season 3, it's really interesting that a lot of the second season is dedicated towards Cobra Kai members and Miyagi-Do members appealing to the town lawmakers who are basically banning the upcoming All Valley tournament, the karate tournament, because of the recent events in the high school.
Oh, in season 3?
In season 3, yeah,
yes.
Going into season 3. I was talking to Jen about it, and I was saying, if karate was never taught to any of these kids, none of this would be a problem. Like, yeah, they'd have, like, their bullies in school, but I think the big problem here is actually karate, because, you know, it's making bullies out of kids. It's making these fights happen. You wouldn't have kids breaking into other people's houses to start fights if it weren't for the karate dojo gangs, basically, that they've started. But at the same time, I know that it's through karate that it's like helping these kids grow up. You know, they're being able to create individuals of themselves.
Before we continue through season 3, something that we missed big at the end of season 2 is the fact that Kreese took over Cobra Kai.
Yes.
He took over the reins. He kicked Johnny out. And the way that he did that was by turning the Cobra Kai students against Johnny and pretty much making them think that he's taking away everything that makes Cobra Kai Cobra Kai.
Yeah. And
on the note of, you know, karate being the issue, the biggest issue is actually stemming from the senseis themselves. Their rivalry trickled down into them, and so they hate each other because of they didn't like each other already because of their senseis being rivals, and then all these like little things that would happen in between just like really threw logs into it. And then the karate, you know, instead of it just being hair pulling and a really crappy fist fight, these kids are kicking each other in the face.
Yeah, no, seriously, like no joke.
But yeah, season 3, I do like season 3 a lot. I know you're not a big fan, and I'll tell you some points of why. I mean, already throughout this entire series, I'm already in the mind of suspension of disbelief. I mean, there's a lot that's happening in the show that's just not gonna happen. Like the end of season 2, like, yeah, and real life. Yeah, there's no way that there's gonna be a huge, gigantic karate war that's gonna happen at a school like at the end of season 2. It was just really entertaining. What I liked about season 3 is that it expands on why Kreese is Kreese and the way that he is, and it shows the background of his character, and that his character wasn't always a crappy person, that he was pretty much driven to become this character by one of his former commanding officers, you know? like during Vietnam. It kind of broke him.
Yeah, like you were saying, we have a lot of character development with Kreese in way of flashbacks to I guess the 70s, right? The 60s and 70s. And you have him.
I think it was early. Yeah, it was pretty early. Like, yeah, I think it started off in the 60s and then yeah, because he goes to the Vietnam War.
Right.
And yeah, I think it rolls into the 70s. Yeah. It because it kind of shows like a precursor, and then it rolls into some flashbacks into Karate Kid 3, where remember when Daniel joins Cobra Kai. And
there's a lot in season 3 actually that harkens back to the second and third films. You want to talk more about that?
Yes. So Daniel's having trouble with his dealership, and a lot of it is stemming with the trouble that he's having with the whole karate thing, the fight. A lot of people aren't really trusting, LaRusso Auto or whatever it was called.
Yeah.
His competitor is pretty much trying to, pull the rug from underneath him. He signed a big, was it like a big car company onto pretty much to join him and to leave, exclusive rights or whatever from LaRusso.
Mm-hmm. All his Japanese vehicles.
Right. He goes to Japan to talk to the head of this company, and this sequence is one of my favorite parts of the season because I absolutely loved Karate Kid 2. So yeah, it was nice seeing Kumiko, Chosen, even that young girl that he had saved for during that typhoon. It was really, really cool, and I loved how her character came back from all these years and she helped save his business. Isn't that crazy? Yeah. Like how that happened? That like down the line that she became this person that I don't know what she did exactly, but she was in a place where she could help him, and that Kumiko helped him out. She helped him out in a lot of ways. Actually, I loved her character in this season. She kind of helped give him this piece of Mr. Miyagi advice.
Well, I mean, what I really like about the interactions when he goes to Japan is that, well, first of all, that they brought the actors back.
Yes, I loved it.
From a lesser known sequel to this Karate Kid franchise, and they all seem so happy and so excited to be returning.
Yes,
they all seemed like just grateful for this opportunity to continue this story, and I think that was one of the strongest points. Just because, I haven't even seen Karate Kid 2, but I feel like I know these characters because of their interaction with Daniel LaRusso. I feel like I know these characters because of the short flashbacks that we were given, and just their joy, their apparent joy while filming, while being on screen in season 3. I love them. I love that this area of the world exists where Daniel can go and get help from afar, basically, and even in areas like with Kumiko where it's unexpected, you didn't expect to get help in that way. It worked out for him, just kind of, and it's a similar thing to Miyagi. Like Miyagi helped him in ways that he would have never expected as a kid.
Yeah, so, it was great. I liked it. When I started seeing these characters, I was like, yes. It was nice seeing them. I really enjoyed that part of the season. It was 2 episodes?
It was maybe like 2.5.
Yeah,
but it was a good chunk of the overall runtime of the 3rd season. So it was appropriate. Like, it didn't drag out.
Right. And there was some good closure in that moment too between him and Chosen. I actually really liked that moment where Chosen beats Daniel in a fight, and he does that nose thing. He's like, I've been waiting. And it's funny because his whole demeanor the entire time they're together is that he just seems angry, kind of upset. It was a front the whole time. Yeah, and when he does that, his whole demeanor just lightens up, and Daniel's like, what just happened? But it's funny though, because it was like all in good fun.
Yeah. So going back to California.
Yes.
You still have like the rivalry between karate gangs. I'm just going to call them karate gangs at this point. You have like Sam, who's kind of like going through like a post-traumatic stress disorder sort of phase of her life, because she's like having nightmares of like being attacked by Tori, and throughout the season she's kind of tormented by Tori, first of all. And then you have Miguel, who is physically paralyzed from the head down, or no, from the waist down, for a good like chunk of the season, the first half or so. And throughout it all, you have characters like Miguel's mother and stuff, and other people who are kind of weighing down Johnny Lawrence in a way. I don't want to say weighing down, but they look down on Johnny Lawrence because of what he taught Miguel that put him in this position to become paralyzed for the rest of her life. And think about, again, this is what like is so great about the series, is that you really get to feel for the mentors, because they grow attachments to these kids. They grow like almost familial attachments, because for all intents and purposes, Miguel becomes more of a son to him than even Robbie ever was. And he feels like he seriously messed up with Miguel. So he does everything in his power to help him get back on his feet. And he does eventually. And, by the end of the season, he's back to kicking and doing, karate again.
Through the power of music.
Yeah, seriously. So
no, but I got that moment. Johnny really wanted to just like take him out and then kind of get his mind off of that. And they used that moment to pretty much start his recovery process from paralysis. And
there were a lot of really good moments with that. Like I like the different like tactics that Johnny tried to get to get him to
the fire.
Yeah, to basically like move a little bit
to help him move. Yeah.
When he lit his leg on fire. That was funny. But he also had like he was dangling like what was it, like an adult magazine in front of him.
Like, you want
trying
it?
to do this or that, and yeah, man, that was so funny. But it wasn't until Miguel, that is, showed a little anger that he got his mind off of the pain and of what he can't do, and it kind of tricked himself into like being able to move a little bit. And music too helped. They went to see a concert, and like he was like tapping his foot a little bit. This is where this season, my suspension of disbelief was kind of removed from this season, just because while I liked the overall story, the timeline of it didn't make any sense to me. And I like being able to watch something and understand how much time passes between events. You have Daniel LaRusso going to Japan for a couple days, and when he comes back, Miguel's walking again. In real life, if you have someone who is paralyzed from the waist down for an extended period of time, it would take much, much longer than a couple days or even a couple weeks, probably even a couple months, to get back on their feet, to be able to start walking normally again, running, and even fighting. That was like a what kind of moment? Like what kind of special healing is Johnny capable of?
It was the fire.
Right. And then Dimitri too. He also in the season he got his yeah. So Hawk broke his arm, which was like a terrifying scene. Like
it really like was.
When it's coming, it's like you feel it. You feel like it's just like a deep like, I can't believe he did that, stuff like that. His arm was only broken for maybe a week, like timeline wise, like based on like how much actual days passed, because everything happened on a daily basis. Come here tomorrow, I'll see you tomorrow. Come here tomorrow, I'll see you tomorrow. I'll meet you there later. So you can kind of gauge what's the actual length of time. And then at the end of the season, he gets his cast off, and it's like Really? I don't know if you've ever broken your arm or anything like that, but a cast will stay on for 2 months easy. So, I don't know. It's stuff like that that really takes me out of it. But overall, I did have a lot of fun with the third season. I guess the other thing that I didn't really like, besides like those timeline inconsistencies, is something we've seen earlier in the show, but this season I feel like we saw a lot of it. So in the first couple seasons, you have, Team Cobra Kai, Team Miyagi-Do. And when one team does something that the people inside the team don't like, they'll migrate to Miyagi-Do, and then they'll start like hating each other, blah, blah, blah. In season 3, there's a lot of like, there's a third faction. There's like Johnny Lawrence's Cobra Kai, or he changes it to
Eagle
what? Like,
Fang.
Yeah, Eagle Fang, which doesn't even make sense.
No, it's funny. They make fun of that. They're like, well, eagles don't have fangs.
I know. Which is, it's perfect for Johnny Lawrence. Eagle Fang karate. So they have Eagle Fang karate, which is the, Johnny Lawrence's karate. You have the Cobra Kai faction, which is like the strong team of bullies that is like led by Kreese. And then you have Miyagi-Do, which is obviously Daniel LaRusso's team, but Daniel's kind of absent for most of the first season. And between those three factions, there's a lot of jumping around throughout the season, especially in the last fight scene. And I think I did have a problem with the final fight scene, even though it was awesome. Like, it's like the hallway scene in Daredevil. Like, it's that kind of a moment where it's like one shot take. I don't know how they got all of these actors, because it was the actual actors doing this fight scene. It wasn't, I mean, I'm sure they used stunt doubles for some, like, in some cases, but it was a one-shot, like, 3-minute fight scene in Daniel LaRusso's home. But Hawk, he sees his old pal, Dimitri, who, yes, he feels bad about the fact that he recently broke Dimitri's arm, but he sees Dimitri getting double-teamed by 2 people fighting him. And he has a change of heart and decides to help Dimitri out. In the moment, I didn't buy it. Like,
it didn't bother me that much because no, it didn't bother me because it wasn't a sudden change of heart. They were building it up throughout the whole season. There was moments where
I guess I would believe that there were moments if I saw his hesitation to go attack Miyagi-Do before that moment. You understand what I'm saying?
He did have hesitations.
Did he?
Yeah, he had hesitations several times. He even hesitated before he broke Dimitri's arm.
Yeah, it was Tori who was like finish him or something like that.
Yeah, right? Tori was like egging him on. Throughout the season he had hesitations. Like, you could see that I think Miguel, like, a couple times were like, man, it's not worth it. Don't be that guy. This is not worth it, So, like, he had those forces pulling him away from that, and he did have hesitations. So when that moment did happen, it didn't feel so sudden for me. I mean, maybe it did happen
maybe I'm being
pretty.
Too critical then.
Maybe it happened a little too fast, but it wasn't totally weird because those moments it was gearing for, it was going to happen sooner or later, pretty much. Like, it was pretty clear that Dimitri was going to defect from Cobra Kai at one point. Like, it was going to happen. My, moment that, like, had me, like, fist pumping was the fight between Johnny and Kreese, and then here comes Daniel. I was like, oh my gosh, dude. Like,
that was like a Civil War type moment,
Dude, yeah, dude. It was so good. Johnny comes in, he confronts Kreese. He's angry because all this stuff's happening. He's like, man, you're hurting so and so. You beat because Miguel comes all beat up from that fight.
Yeah.
And so he confronts Kreese. He's so mad, man. He's like, he's throwing down on Kreese, fighting. He's beating up Kreese, and then Kreese kind of gets the drop on him, and he's trying to kill him. And then here comes Daniel, and he's pissed because of his daughter. And Daniel kicks him, and they're both just like wailing on him. They're building up to this moment. You already know. I loved Elizabeth Shue's involvement in this season.
Yeah.
Her moment, like, and she wasn't even in the show for very long.
She was in it for an episode.
So much. It did so much. It pretty much cleared the air. It added a third perspective to the story. Mm-hmm. And it's like, you do realize that you guys are a lot more alike than you want to admit, right? Yeah. And they started seeing it.
It was an interesting dynamic that they introduced into season 3, just through that one episode, you know, like between season 2 and 3, you have Johnny Lawrence trying to communicate to Allie through Facebook, but when she finally shows up, which amazingly, all of these people look amazing for their age. Yeah, you know, right? Holy crap! They don't look like they've had a lot of work done or anything like that. They look naturally, you know, well aged, and Allie is no different. She looked fantastic. I really think it was her that brought Daniel and Johnny together.
Oh yeah, you know, most definitely.
It was just like something she said clicked for both of them. Like, they're both wrong. Just get over it, you know. Be like normal guys and just, you know, shake and move on. But it was because of that they were able to, you know, get rid of their differences, because they have a lot more alike, like you were saying.
I do like that Daniel's wife is that middle ground too, because she sees it also, and she agrees with it. And it's crazy. You finally find out what happened between Daniel and Allie. What broke them apart.
Speaking of Daniel's wife, when I first started watching the show, I wasn't sure if I liked the character. I wasn't sure if I was going to like the character, if she was going to be like annoying, like, Daniel, don't start karate, blah blah blah. And she had those moments, but by the third season, she's like all for karate, because she doesn't see another way out of the situation that her children and her family's in. Yeah. And she wants to teach this guy Kreese a lesson. So throughout the first and second season, she was what was grounding Daniel. But by the third season, she kind of loosened those restraints a little bit and said, go for it. And I really appreciate that about her character. She's a very, like, admirable and believable character too. Like, you know, she clearly has or sees fault in her husband, which is not an unnatural thing for a married couple to have. But she is also willing to work with him. But yeah, Allie, she's also a very grounded character. She obviously has had, you know, a long life of off-screen events that has, like, transpired. It's really cool to have that third perspective. But for Johnny especially, I think he needed that closure. I think both Daniel and Johnny needed closure with her, especially Johnny. And what I was worried about, because this is one thing that I hate in like dramas like this, is a love triangle. Johnny was just starting to see Miguel's mother. Yeah. You know, they had just started a relationship, and then Allie showed up. And it's so easy to see that they get along so well, Allie and him. So it's like, oh man, he's totally going to forget about Miguel's mom. Yeah. And Allie's going to take over, and it's just going to be a weird love triangle. And then the relationship between him and Miguel is going to get strained, and it's just going to go downhill. But it wasn't like that at all. She was a character, and it's believably, she was a character that was just visiting, came to say some words of wisdom, and left. And I love that. I think that for me was the strongest point of the season.
And she even mentioned, like, so who's this woman you've been seeing? And yeah, he even talked about Miguel's mother fondly. So it was, yeah, her moment in that show was really good. I think it was utilized very well. You could tell that she loved being back in that role. Like, yeah. I think you could tell. It was really funny when she was like, oh yeah, so what are you driving now? And it was like a minivan, and he told her like what it was, and she's like, okay, well, don't tell me then. And it really was that minivan. It was hilarious. Yeah. There's just so many things. Yeah. You know, the show overall is a drama, but there's just so many light-hearted moments in it that are hilarious.
Well, hopefully season 4 doesn't take too long, so that we can, get to it and talk about, the goings-on of Cobra Kai season 4 down the line.
Yeah, we got to talk about the end of
Go for it.
Season 3. Go for it. So after all this happens, the standoff between Kreese, increasingly violent fights between Cobra Kai and Miyagi-Do and Eagle Fang.
Yep.
Miyagi-Do and Eagle Fang decide to join up to compete against Cobra Kai in the upcoming tournament. Dude, and guess who joins by the end of the season? Who joins Cobra Kai? Robbie.
Yeah, Robbie.
Robbie joins at the end of season 3. So there's some stakes on there.
Yeah, I want to, like, I know this is never going to happen, but I kind of just want to see, like, a super buff Robbie just, like, taking on people, like, 2 at a time.
He's at the tournament. Give me 3.
Yeah, like Donnie Yen and...
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah.
10 people.
All of them. Well, let's get this over with. So I'm excited for what's next. I think this was a good show, good breakdown of like what worked and what didn't work for both of us in terms of Cobra Kai. Again, thanks for getting me to sit down and watch this, because between you and my dad, you got me to like love this series and revisit Karate Kid, which is a movie that I adored when I was young. So. This was a good conversation, man. Yeah,
I'm glad that your dad had you... What was it again? Watch Cobra Kai and then he'll watch what?
Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Oh, okay, that's right. So yeah, I think that was a great trade-off. I mean, they're both great shows, so...
Yeah, he ended up loving that, good. So...
I'm glad that he ended up loving that, because as we've spoken about 800 times and in our Avatar episode... That's my favorite cartoon.
Yes.
One of mine.
Yeah, I totally agree. All right. With all that being said, we're at the 1 hour and 30-minute mark for our podcast. It'll probably be around maybe an hour and 15 for you guys listening back home or wherever you listen to your podcast, because we edit out a lot of like the just random stuff that we don't want to include in it.
Alrighty, guys. Thank you so much for listening to us here at Project Geekology for our 18th episode. Next Monday, we'll be diving into our discussion of Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, for Episode 19. The choice to cover The Phantom Menace next actually came from all of you who voted in our poll. So thanks for that. And for Episode 20, the following Monday, you voted for us to cover The Lion King 1994 versus the 2019 live-action remake. If you'd like to make your voice heard for episode 21, go on Twitter right now and vote in our poll for the following week. Topics included for our episode 21 poll are The Princess Bride, Godzilla 2014, the new Star Wars book, Light of the Jedi, and Man of Steel. You'll also find our poll on Geekritique YouTube channel, Dakota's YouTube channel. Be sure to find all links to our show and socials in the show notes so you can keep up to date on all Project Geekology news and updates. If you enjoyed today's show, share it on social media, review it in your preferred podcast application, or talk to us directly online. Thanks and have a great rest of your week.
All right, guys. Have a good one.
Bye.